Hello there, and welcome to Power Talk. My name is Victor Mwila. Today we are discussing Zambia's investment in diversifying the energy mix. As government and the private sector increase investments in solar, transmission, infrastructure, and other energy technologies, the country is looking to build a more resilient and secure energy future. To help us understand these developments, I am joined by energy sector thought leader and CEO of the Energy Forum for Africa, EFFA, Engineer Hope Chanda. Engineer Chanda, I would like to say thank you so much for honoring the invitation to come and appear on Power Talk.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Discussing Zambia's investment in diversifying the energy mix. Why has it become such an urgent priority for the country, looking at where we are coming from?
Thank you, Victor. I think the first thing is that we don't want to go back to where we were 2 years ago. And we are not there yet, as in where we are supposed to be. But at least we know that the drought really affected the energy sector negatively, and the impact could have been worse. But I think as a country, we have worked together. Quickly to mention that the Energy Forum for Africa was actually born at the time of the crisis, when we had the energy crisis and, of course, the drought. So we had a call to action to bring in diversification of the energy mix in the country in order to create a sustainable energy future and also a resilient energy sector. And so the diversification in terms of energy mix cannot be overemphasized. And what we see now is that we are trying to reduce the dependence on hydropower from 82% to bring it down to as far as 70%. Currently, we are sitting at 80% with all other energy sources being solar, coal, a bit of wind here and there. We also have biomass and all other energy sources. Please do not also forget that petroleum also is another source of energy and adds to the energy mix in the country. The energy sector requires to have a choice. I can rely on hydropower. I will not shun hydropower completely, but I will also have to rely on solar. I will also have to rely on coal. I will also have to rely on wind energy, biomass, and all other sources of energy. And that is important for the country.
And talking about the different sources that you've mentioned, the alternative sources of energy, which technologies, in your view, offer the greatest potential for Zambia in the short term and medium term?
I think, as you can see, we have really worked hard to bring in solar onto the grid. If you look at solar, it has a shorter turnaround time. And in the very short term, solar is a great solution. We have seen over 500 megawatts brought into the energy mix between 2024 and 2026. I think that's a major milestone. We have had solar plants being commissioned one after another by the utilities and by other independent power producers. And that has increased the solar generation into the mix from what we had previously to what we have now. And then looking at medium term, we can be talking about sources of power like coal. There is cleaner technologies in terms of coal where we can actually clean off and harvest the silt from the coal-fired power plants in order to reduce carbon emission into the atmosphere. I think that is one of the midterm solutions that is available to us. But in the very short term, we have seen solar coming up. Within 12 months, we are able to put up a 100 megawatt solar plant. And for smaller plants like 20 megawatts, we have seen different developers and different utilities bringing in 25 megawatts within time of 6 months.
Well, the government, of course, working together with our national power utility, ZESCO, have been targeting to bring on board about 1,000 megawatts of solar power. Do you think that is achievable before the close of the year? So far, I have seen that from information and research, it's like we are over 600 megawatts already.
Yes, we are over 600 megawatts. We know that Chanda also is coming on board very quickly. Before the end of the year, I think we're going to have an additional 100 megawatts. So looking at that, that is almost 700 megawatts. We also have other IPPs that are coming up. There's a 50 megawatts somewhere in Choma. What has really helped, I think, is the policy direction from the government. A lot of restrictions have been removed in terms of solar generation. We have policies that are encouraging investments into the energy sector. This has driven many investors to actually invest in the solar power. We also have seen local banks participating actively as arrangers and financiers of solar projects. And this has also driven us to have at least at the moment over 600 megawatts. I would be very optimistic to say it is actually possible to have by the end of the year, or at least Q1 of 2027, we should reach the target of 1,000 megawatts.
What other investments do you think are necessary for us to secure the
We
energy
have
future?
other investments coming in the wind power generation as well. I think that is something that we cannot ignore. In the Eastern Province, we have we are anticipating solar. We are anticipating wind generation to come through. Also within Central Province, we're expecting wind generation to come through. I think that will increase. We have in the southern, we have our thermal power plants that are also coming up very rapidly and developing. I'm sure by the end of this year, we will see some thermal plants commissioned within this year. And then also the other investment that we should not forget about is the transmission network. The transmission network is becoming very key in terms of developing the energy sector and the electricity sector particularly, because once there's generation, that power has to be transmitted to the intended users and the end users at distribution level. So infrastructure development will also have to be in the transmission system, the 330 kV lines, 400 volts, 400 kV lines as well. And I have seen a lot of development within the sub-transmission. So the sub-transmission seems to sit quite well at 132, but we also need to up our game, especially for the central corridor, for us to bring in the generation that is coming from different sources to reach the intended users.
Exactly. Yeah. That was going to be my next question, actually.
Okay.
Storage and
Yes.
distribution systems. So how do you rate our situation in that area? Storage and distribution. Do you think we are making progress in as much as we are investing in generation? Do you think we are doing enough?
Yes, we are. As a consultant myself, we have done a few studies in terms of battery energy storage systems. Some of the IPPs that are coming on board for solar would also like to add the battery energy storage system. Number one, to stabilize the grid, and number two, to store the energy in order for it to be used at another time. As you may be aware, solar would be, solar energy is the time when we have the sunlight. After sunlight, we go into a blackout as far as solar is concerned. But if we have a battery, we have time that it has been stored from the time of generation when we had sunlight, and it can go in up to the night, depending on the size of the battery. And so these are the studies that we are doing to see how much time can we have the battery supplying the grid for. And especially during the peak hours. I think it's an opportunity also that some investors can actually just invest in battery energy storage and supply into the grid when we have a shortage of power, especially at the peak time. We also have other investments I think you have mentioned in terms of I mentioned distribution, I mentioned transmission, but distribution is another key area in which we need investments. We are seeing a lot of smart technologies for distribution. I think smart metering becomes very key in terms of distributing systems, because then we know energy management will be something that is a priority, especially for the utility. How much and how energy is being utilized must be well managed for efficiencies. And so the smart technologies helps to make sure that there's efficient use of technology and energy management systems. That investment is really necessary for our country.
Zambia is a member of the Southern African Power Pool SAP. How important is this? Is this helping in our energy security as a country? How important is SAP?
If you look at Zambia, we always say Zambia is positioned in a central location. And so we're saying Zambia is land linked. And for us, the Southern African Power Pool becomes a very important aspect in terms of energy security. Why do I say so? During the drought, we had a situation where we were actually importing power from our neighbors, and that provided for our energy security. And so without the Southern African Power Pool, that would not have been possible. And what we are looking for, especially as the Energy Forum for Africa, is to see a borderless energy future where we can import and export power to our neighboring countries, Tanzania, DRC, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. And so this is what we are looking to see, that there are interconnectors between these countries. And this positions us to be able to get power from our neighboring countries and to be able to export power. How does that promote energy security? It means that we will not be stranded. There will be no stranded power within the region. The power can be traded. As you may be aware, Southern African Power Pool has the most advanced trading platform in Africa. People are trading on the platform. And by the way, Zambia has the most members of traders on the Southern African Power Pool, which is a very good position for us and a very big opportunity for Zambia. So we can see that trading as well on the platform provides the much needed energy security for the region. Yeah.
Okay, looking ahead, what should Zambia's energy mix look like? Let's say in a decade.
Okay.
What steps do you think we must be able to take in order to achieve that vision? Because government has been talking about, is it 10,000
gigawatts of power by 2030?
By 2030?
Yes.
Is that achievable?
It is achievable, especially looking at the policy direction that we are taking. And also the region is following suit. There's a lot of reforms happening within the region. So it is actually very possible, because the outlook on Zambia is improving. We have unlocked, I think, $275 million into the energy sector by the government. I think you heard that announcement. And so that is an opportunity for investors from outside Zambia. We also have a favorable tariff right now that is producing bankable projects for the energy sector. So the opportunity to invest in Zambia is vast, and we see that the investment opportunities are actually yielding more returns than any other places in the world, I must say. So we are looking at this situation in terms of, one, energy security, one, energy sufficiency as well, so that by the time, come 2030, we have that 10 gigawatts of power. That requires approximately $6 billion. And from my point of view, it also calls for collaboration. It calls for collaboration from bilateral organizations. It calls for collaboration among the IPPs, among the utilities. It calls for collaboration even among the local banks, because we know that no local bank is able to facilitate the $6 billion on their own. So we bring in together all the banks to come in and say, how can we collaborate? One bank is an arranger, another one is a financier, and that can be achieved. So the energy mix is achievable, and we also need diversification in terms of what sources of energy we would need. And that financing also should be available for us to achieve that. When you talk about how far should we go, I think we should be talking about 60% of hydro. We should reduce the dependence on hydro to at least 60%, and then we have a reliable power supply in the country.
Talking about, for instance, policies that government has put in place, which policies do you think really, there's the open access and so many others, which policies do you think have really inspired investment? Because we've never seen this from the private sector. We've seen a lot of players coming on board. Which policies do you think have really inspired this kind of participation?
I think the open access policies has been a game changer. We have seen that the government has put in steps to protect the investor. So if you look at the Zambian implementation agreement, I think it is quite a bankable document that any investor would look at and say, we are ready to go into this country. So the implementation agreement has protected the investor, and that has really improved the outlook on Zambia. So being an open access regime right now, we have investors that can come in. We also have local investors that are coming in, and an opportunity for everybody. Simply everybody can invest in the energy sector, can be a player in the energy sector. You know that Zambia is a mining country, and copper alone, to produce copper, needs about 60% of the generation of power that we have currently. And so there's heavy reliance on energy in Zambia. And if we talk about 3 million tons in the next 4 or 5 years, we also expect that ramp up of energy into the energy sector. And so having different players into the industry has really opened up opportunities and access for everybody. And so for me, I would say the open access policy has been a game changer for Zambia, and will be in the nearest future.
Engineer Chanda, in your closing remarks, I would like you to reflect on this. There's been a feeling from members of the general public, having seen stabilized power supply, I think from the beginning of 2026, there's a feeling that this is a political gimmick. As an independent consultant, from your perspective, do you think the investment that has been made in ramping up or increasing power generation, resulting in what we are experiencing now, that members of the general public, households have power supply 24 hours, do you think this is just a genuine investment? This is coming from real efforts that have brought in increased power supply in Zambia?
We are doing a lot of studies for different investors and different companies coming in to invest in Zambia, some of which have actually gone to implementation. So you would not think that this is just a gimmick. This is real work that people are putting in. This is real money that investors are putting in. But also we cannot take away what the government has done, especially through the utility as well, in terms of bringing on board about 330 megawatts of solar just in the last 2 years. I think that is commendable. And that is real power, tangible power that you can switch on. So it is not a gimmick. It is real power that has been put into the grid. We also have the private sector putting in another 300, 400 megawatts. That is real power. Recently, we were commissioning 136 megawatts. So that is real power that has been brought about. We also have a construction of about 600 megawatts in the south. We also have another 300 megawatts in the south. So a total of 900 megawatts will also come on board in the next 12 months or so, being optimistic. So what work has been done is real work. We recently had a launch of the Energy Forum for Africa 2026 edition, and we followed up on the projects and how far and how much progress has been made. If you can recall, Zanis was there, and we saw that there's a lot of projects that have been brought on board, and we could see these projects have actually been commissioned and switched on. And we are looking at, in the next 6 months, another 300 to 500 megawatts coming on board. Yeah.
Engineer Chanda, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your insights on Zambia's evolving energy landscape.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
We always appreciate your coming. Thank you so much. Well, viewers, that's it for today on Power Talk. We were hosting energy sector thought leader and Chief Executive Officer, CEO of the Energy Forum for Africa, Engineer Hope Chanda, discussing Zambia's investment in diversifying the energy mix. On behalf of the entire production team, my name is Victor Mwila. Thank you for watching Power Talk. Until next time, bye-bye.